Welcome, listeners, to the podcast The Living Zombie, where we talk about all the movies that spawned from the Night of the Living Dead. This is our Night of the Living Dead fan cast, you might call it. Yeah, if I don't put it in the other one, sorry for the lack of updates lately. I got sick like 3 days after finishing the last one, and then as I got sick, Curtis got sick, and then yeah, so it's taken a while to get the episodes out. So stay tuned for that Zombie 3 or Return of the Living Dead Part 2 review as applicable. But this week, I actually brought in Cody for this one. Cody's here to do.
Hello.
We've done some zombie movies on this before, but this is his first invite onto the spinoff podcast.
I don't know what to add to that.
The reason I did that, a couple reasons. First of all, this says we're doing the 2004 Dawn of the Dead film. This takes place. This is released a year before Romero does his own Dawn of the Dead sequel, Land of the Dead, which we reviewed last. You can see that video up on the internets if you haven't seen it already. But yeah, Zack Snyder and his directorial debut directs this Dawn of the Dead remake, if you can call it that. It's not at all similar to the original Dawn of the Dead. The similarity is they both take place in a mall for the large part of it, but they're very different otherwise.
Yeah.
You seen the original Dawn of the Dead?
Probably not. I'm not gonna lie to you. Horror's not really my wheelhouse, so.
But yeah, this is Zack Snyder's first film, way back in 2004.
I was gonna bring that up because, like, if this is a remake, like, how do they cast directors at that point in time? Because, like, if this is his directorial debut, like, he has 0 accolades to his name. Like, how do you get put on such a big project?
They say he was doing commercials before this a lot of the time, but he said he got hired onto this because he'd put a lot of care into every shot, was the theory. Which I don't know, it's okay. Budget on this is $26 million, so that's actually it's expensive, but it's cheaper than a lot of things. Made $102.3 million at the box office, which is a decent return on that amount of money. James Gunn writes the screenplay for this. This is back in the day, like this is like his the film that he had written in tandem with this was Scooby-Doo 2. So that's the kind of era we're in. Yeah, no,
James Gunn did
yeah.
Guardian of the Galaxy, correct? Yeah.
Yes. And he's now in charge of DC movies now, or co-in charge, whatever. Yeah, they maybe announced that like 3 days ago when we record this. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what that turns out as. So yeah, it's very different from the original. I mean, it's like there's way more characters in this than the previous one, where the original only has like 4 characters in it. So you can't even really draw parallels between them. I mean, I think even very quickly this film develops into like a main cast of like 3 or 5 that are very different. Film stars Sarah Polley as Anna Clark, a bunch of other smaller actors. They got the fucking one guy from Modern Family who's annoying as shit in this. The guy who plays Steve. What is he?
Ty Burrell.
Yeah, he is. Oh, yeah, no, that is his name. Why did I think he was a different guy? Yeah, no, Ty Burrell's character is fucking annoying. Like, he is just, I mean, he's supposed to be, but fuck, he is terrible. They also got, interesting note, David Cronenberg's older sister did costume design for this, so that's kind of interesting. Film's shot in Toronto, for the most part, though the movie takes place in Milwaukee. Which what, you couldn't afford Milwaukee? I can't. Is Milwaukee like a really expensive place to film? I don't know.
It's probably cheaper than Toronto. Maybe not 2004
Yeah.
Toronto, but like it's got to be
Like,
cheaper at that point.
okay, the trade-off would be there's film people on Toronto though. So
yeah, but like,
yeah.
Why even go out of your way and be like, oh, this is Milwaukee? Why can't you just be like, yeah, this was shot in Toronto? Like,
Yeah.
What are
Why
you
not really?
trading off at that point in time? Like,
The film ditches a lot of like the social commentary. It's not really about consumerism as much. Yeah.
yeah, I was gonna ask, what do you classify as a Canadian film at that point in time? Because if it's shot in Toronto, doesn't that technically make it
Um
a Canadian film?
I mean, from a certain point of view, there's a lot of debate on that. I mean, this has a lot of Canadian actors in it. Like Sarah Polley's Canadian. I know I clicked on a couple people. Jane Eastwood is Canadian. She's plays a character Norma. So they use a few Canadian actors in this. Is Yeah, but there's a lot of American ones in here. Fucking Halloween bugs. But I mean, you maybe could. It's got a Canadian lead. Yeah, I don't know that. Yeah, there's not too many other guys that would. Yeah, there's a few Canadian actors in it, but yeah, it's. I don't know. It depends on what you think. I think you'd get like a lot of. I don't know if you quite get. Yeah, there's not as much rules about like what qualifies as Canadian movie as far as like the law is concerned, like there is for like TV and music. But yeah,
Mm-hmm. I think radio notoriously has to play like 45% Canadian made production
yeah, meaning like Canadian
by
performer,
law.
Canadian songwriter. I think. Yeah, I think you can have like a certain amount of the band members need to be Canadian or like writer directors. Like I think that's why Nazareth historically got a bit more play is because like the drummer's Canadian or something. A lot of people really hate this movie. I don't quite hate it. I know I called the room for this recording Bad Dawn of the Dead or The Bad Dawn of the Dead, but I didn't think it was too bad. Though there's also like a directed like a longer director's cut that I didn't watch. It has some like I think there's a bit of I think that version's a bit worse. I know for a fact there's a bit in that one where one of the side characters like gets made fun of because he has feelings, and the side character is also like he's a like cannot he would canonically be a cross dresser, but it's we see a little bit in this cut of the movie where he tries on a red high heel. But that scene was wisely cut from the larger movie from this version of the movie.
I think the one I watched was only an hour and 40 minutes, so
Yeah, mine too. But there
I
is
don't
like
know
a
which version I watched.
which I like. I'm not going to complain about someone making that cut, which is probably a good thing. Yeah, the characters obviously aren't as good, but they have their moments. It's a lot more of an action film than a lot of the other zombie movies I've covered on the spin-off podcast. This actually does a good I think a good double bill with the one I'm trying to record with Curtis right now, Zombie 3, which is also very much an action movie. And I kind of like that a little better because that movie I can speak to it retrospectively, but that movie has a lot of the zombies are less running like these are the zombies in this are the fast zombies, the first real example of that we get in this podcast of the fast running zombies, whereas in and that's how they make this into an action movie in this is because the zombies are really fast and dangerous. But in Zombie 3, which I believe is actually a better action movie, which is probably a hard sell, but it's a lot more ambush based. like the zombies in that are ambush predators. So they run a bit, but they don't. But they mostly do their whole thing about hiding and whatnot, less running. But yeah, this is a very running zombie thing, which is some people are like. I think it's like it allows single zombies to be a lot more dangerous, which I don't know. I mean, it depends on how it's shot. Like some people show if you frame the slow zombies bad, it can look really silly, which is the problem with slow zombies. Is that it's easy to make look silly. Whereas the fast zombies, it's easier to make them scary because they're jumping right at the characters. In theory, anyway. Like you have to put work into the slow zombies. There's also the other factor of like in The Walking Dead where they use slow zombies, the thing is like single zombies quickly become not super dangerous, but the dangerous is getting the hordes going, which yeah, it's a trade-off, which is also probably more expensive for some people. But yeah, I think it's I don't know if I say I think I generally like slower zombies. I don't know if I have like a favorite zombie really. I don't know if I have the strong opinion that other people do on the fast zombie versus slow zombie debate.
I liked I Am Legend zombies, but that's a whole different thing. I prefer the movie,
Yeah.
mostly because of its single character viewpoint. I just found it opened up a lot of the doors that, like, sure, you've got a lot of people doing their own things in big groups like The Walking Dead, or I guess a little bit of this to some extent. Like we see Sarah's character go off on her own right in the beginning, but that's kind of all. Like it's slowly they group up fairly fast. So
Yeah. Yeah, this film very much does both, where it does horde zombies and fast zombies. I think the zombies in this are fine, really. There's only like a few goofy moments. Like a zombie in this, there's a zombie really early in the on that kind of just like breaks his head straight through like a solid wooden like inside door. Like just like The Shining, but like with his bare skull, which is kind of freaky in a way, and it like I think that's actually used sort of effectively in that scene. But this movie's does sadly fall into like my least favorite zombie trope, which is you know actually that's what I'll say. The problem I don't have a problem with fast zombies or versus slow zombies. I have a problem with zombies that come out of nowhere, like zombies that are like super like randomly placed. Like the one zombie about 2/3 of the way through his movie that has no limbs and yet drops from the roof. Like that I hate. Like that kind of thing I hate. I don't like that. But I don't really have like that's I think more the real enemy here. Versus it's not about slow zombies versus fast zombies, smart zombies versus dumb zombies. It's random zombies coming from random directions, which I think is the problem.
I don't know. Maybe I'm missing like the specific scene you're talking about. But what I'm trying to figure out is like, did he lose his limbs while he was on top of the ceiling, or did he not have limbs in the first place? In which
I
case,
don't
how
know.
did he get
I'm
on the
thinking the
ceiling?
one where I'm thinking of the one where the less known security guard, the one who's not CJ but is still like one of the bad ones, where he dies, the zombie that gets him while he's holding like the
Okay.
flashlight while they're going through that basement.
Mm-hmm.
This is also the first movie I've done in the franchise where just regular dead people don't become zombies. Like
Yeah.
because that's actually you think the way like The Walking Dead frames it, where it's like a big revelation, you think like okay that's uncommon for the genre, but I've found that it's actually very common for the genre that like the regular dead people will also become zombies, or people that die of non-zombie things will become zombies. Whereas this one, the if you die of like regular gunshot, you don't become a zombie.
I think The Walking Dead really did that well, but also I don't know how I feel about it necessarily. Like, it definitely added to the horror for me in the Walking Dead universe because it gave the opportunity for people to be like, oh, we didn't know that this is what happened. Let's, like, I don't know, try and keep this person alive. Then all of a sudden that person's a zombie. It's fairly interesting, but
yeah, it's very much a Romero invention as far as I can tell, and he uses it quite frequently in the original like less in Dawn of the Dead because there's less characters, but in Night of the Living Dead and like Land of the Dead, it's used quite frequently. Day of the Dead too, I believe. I think like because yeah, it adds to that extra threat of like, okay, if someone regular dies, you need to like do something to take care of them, which is yeah, it's just a different way, and this is movie forgoes that entirely, which is interesting. It's a change from the original because this one's trying to make the zombies purely scientific, which I guess they are in the Night of the Living Dead and Return of the Living Dead versions. Actually, most it's like the modern zombies that are all purely creatures of science, but that is something they've left out. It's not like a airborne contagion uh, like in the other ones. It's exclusively spread through the bites. Which, yeah, I don't know. I think it's a totally valid way of doing it differently. But
like,
yeah,
I've watched pretty much all of The Walking Dead except for I think the newest season, I think, is where I kind of hung up on it, mostly because it went to AMC Plus and I don't want to pay.
I cut off around this time when they get to like the town.
Which one?
But yeah. Oh,
You're gonna have to be way more specific because they get
sorry.
into a lot of
Yeah,
towns in
yeah.
The Walking
The
Dead.
one with like the big barricades around it. The one that's like trying to be like
You're really
suburbia.
far behind.
I mean, I got like
Wait,
6
which?
seasons in. How many seasons is it?
Okay, so there's 11,
Oh, okay. So yeah, I got about halfway
and
through.
11 is going to be the last one. So I'm just trying to figure out which one you're like. You got through the governor arc essentially, and then
Yes. I'm between that and the Deacon stuff, but I just have no intention of going further with it.
so yeah, you're pretty much the Alexandria arc at that point in time,
Yeah, that's the place. Yeah,
and
I think the next thing that happens is the Deacon
you
stuff.
haven't got
But
into Negan.
Negan, Negan is who I mean.
Yeah,
Sorry,
not
I got that.
Negan.
Yeah, Negan is
Um,
the guy.
and I guess I could probably talk on some of like the spin-off like Fear of the Walking Dead stuff because I watched I think about 2 seasons of that, but like for what it's like claiming, because like The Walking Dead kind of drops your main character into like a zombie apocalypse, and you kind of get a sense of what the world is like from their eyes. But like Fear the Walking Dead was supposed to be this you see a family in the like opening of a zombie apocalypse, and I guess this one kind of does it too, but like it just feels like they didn't really show like the collapse of civilization as much as I would have liked. It kind of just went from what Fear the Walking Dead was supposed to be into what The Walking Dead was, and that kind of like it just kind of pissed me off a little because like I don't know, it took away from what I wanted from the TV show.
Yeah, I
No.
haven't seen like I've now watched like 10 zombie movies for this podcast now. Probably a few more that I'm not thinking of. And I've never seen it like fully done. I've seen like there's obvious aftermath stuff, but I've never seen like the full collapse of civilization in any of these movies firsthand.
Mhm.
Like this movie teases us with that because there's a little bit like after like the stinger where they do like a bit of I think they show stuff from after this. The original Dawn of the Dead comes the closest, because there's like some scenes of like the characters in the original Dawn of the Dead are like police officers or army guys, one of the two, that kind of are like oppressing the people, and like the society has become a police state, and they go AWOL during that phase of the thing. So that's that's the most we get. Like we always get like an impression that like the government during Land of the that during Dawn of the Dead is the original is now a police state that people have to flee as much as the zombies, but it's never we never quite get that thorough downfall. I think it's maybe just because some people point out where it's quite difficult to like have that level of collapse with just the zombie apocalypse. Like it's something we'd be able to sort of take care of, is the thinking of a lot of people. I think maybe the best you get is the Survivor's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse, or whatever it's called. I have it sitting across the other side of the room. I can see it, but I don't want to go get it. But that details it the best. Or perhaps maybe World War Z is probably the best example of that. The book, not the movie, where like they kind of do their best to nail that. But yeah, no, it's never quite explored. The actual collapse is never quite explored as well as we need to. And I think there's still maybe a demand for that movie out there.
I guess like I think there was some stuff in. I don't think that that's the problem. I don't think a movie can truly do.
Yeah, it would be a show. Yeah,
the like yeah, it'd have to be a television show, and it'd have to be
or a book, show, or a novel. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I Am Legend also kind of touched on it, where they're like, well, we've got the choice to allow this outbreak to continue, or we can just like nuke. I think it was New York. I'm not 100% sure where that book was located, but
I think we'll get into it. I think we've talked about a bunch of preamble here. So we open the movie with our main character talking to like a doctor. She's a Sarah, Anna, or is the character, Anna Clark. She is a She is a nurse. I dropped my phone. She is a nurse in Milwaukee, and she is like just getting off her night shift. She's handing off like some patient to the doctor, who has gotten like a bite wound, and actually had like he's evidently had like a head X-ray done, which is bizarre to the doctors because he came in for like a bite wound. This is all like actually a pretty neat example of like the early responses to the zombies coming out, which which zombie movies like often do quite well. Like I think this is kind of at least the first bit of this movie is sort of doing pretty good at it. Like the first 5 minutes or whatever, this doctor scene. But yeah, so they point that at, so they point that out, and they hand off this patient. She tries to locate him, and she's just told like, yeah, they moved him to ICU, and they're like, yeah, for a bite, weird. But yeah, no, he's getting moved to ICU. But she doesn't have. But Anna doesn't have time to worry about that. She needs to go home and sleep, as nurses often need to do. So she goes home, drives home, says hi to her kid, I believe, and then goes in and has a shower with her boyfriend, who's also getting off night shift. So they go do that, and they have like a shower, missing a television bulletin saying what's happened. So they do that and then they have their sex in the shower. Then they go sleep, and they wake up to see their daughter in the hallway with, and the husband notices her first, and he's like, oh, hey, what do you need? We'll be right with you. And then he gets a better look and realizes that yeah, her entire like lip region has kind of been like ripped apart, which is how some zombies look, evidently from like them eating people and just ripping off the like in the process ripping off like bits of their like lip flesh. So he's like, "Oh God, you're hurt," and goes to check on his daughter, and then she promptly bites him on the neck, waking Anna, who gets him, and she gets thrown away. The little girl gets thrown away, and she pulls back her husband back into the bedroom, and the little girl then gets back up and starts charging at the door, and she panics and shuts the door on her, which holds the little girl out. Anna does some immediate first aid to her husband and tries to like clot the cover up the bleeding with blankets and sheets. Then she goes to check on like call 911, but finds that the 911 lines are all bogged up. Uh, and as she's doing this, her husband bleeds out and then gets up as a zombie and starts charging at her. Skirmish emerges, and she ends up going into her bathroom and locking herself in there, which works for a little bit before the zombie ends up charging her. This is the part where her husband zombie breaks through the door with his bare head, and she has to like sneak her way out of the house through the window in the bathroom, which is the least pleasant window to have to squeak through. She squeaks through the window though, and falls a good 7 feet. That looked sort of painful. Like it's like you jump it and you jump in a heartbeat if you had to, but yeah, it's not fun falling 7 feet. And a guy later in the movie does just break his ankle from falling this exact distance. So
this is dumb. I hated this scene.
Yeah, it does get bad, sort of.
For so many reasons, and I'd like to first point out I was kind of really impressed about this scene at first because like the reaction time of when the husband was bit to when the husband turned into a zombie. I like that. It was very, very it was fast. And so I was like, oh, this is like clearly a threat. And then later on in the movie, it showed that like people who are bitten were like hours and hours and hours were like not turning. So I feel that kind of like it was like, oh, we need to set this movie
I
up.
feel like if you die, yeah. I feel like if you die from the wound, you turn faster.
Well, this guy was bitten in the neck, so in theory, like the faster, the severity of the bite could affect the. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. I think like
it,
the
never
bite
explains it.
Yeah, no, fair enough. But like the bite does carry a disease, but like that. I think how it works in universe is you bite something, it carries the disease. The disease can kill you on its own, but it's I mean, depending on how badly you've been hit, it can take a while, or depending on your dose. Like we see that like scratches can take like straight up like a couple weeks, maybe even in universe. But a bite can take like a couple hours, and then if you die from it, you it does go through the whole thing. So the virus needs to kill you, and then it raises you. So yeah, I think that's how it's working here.
Or theoretically, just raises you. So like, in theory, if you got bitten and then potentially like fell down and broke your neck, do you think you'd still turn, or would that be
I think so.
as like
it might be a little slower, but I think you would still turn.
So it's as long as you're bitten, it doesn't really matter how you die at that point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Though the one thing I will say is like a big reason why this doesn't make sense is I don't see how I mean, I guess it's rabies, but how does rabies spread really? I think it's more that like it develops, like rabies develops like a slime in the mouth or whatever, or like it's spread through your saliva or something. But which is weird because like saliva spreads it, but blood doesn't. Then again, I think like saliva doesn't spread AIDS, so that's maybe checks out. I'm not a doctor.
Mm-hmm. But apparently this lady is like she's a nurse, and which is funny because like later on in the movie she brings up the fact that like oh, this person's infected, but she doesn't have like a fever of like a regular infection. Like a regular infection normally causes fever, and then like this person was cold, and then I don't
Oh, we're talking about that older lady, right?
know. Yeah, later, like Norma later on in the film, like she was super
Yeah.
cold.
I think that was I think that was because she was basically dead. Like I think if like you get that close, you stop like having a fever. Like something like I think that's you
Okay,
can get like cold, clammy skin when you get to like that almost dead point. Yeah.
like I don't think like any zombie film has really done like the whole entire like bite thing very decently. Like it's always been really hit or miss on like is this scientifically accurate or is this like
No,
medically
yeah.
accurate or is this nobody's really done any decent.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that don't make sense in every zombie movie, and they're all different. Like I think every one of these franchises I'm reviewing on the podcast are different. Like Return of the Living Dead series works different than the Romero movies, and all the zombie movies are different. And then like I think you could probably say that the Romero version zombies and the Walking Dead zombies function identically. But I mean I think it's just they all work
And I
differently
think
and they all have their little weird hangups.
yeah, and I don't think like rabies is probably like the most canonically like close to what a zombie virus would look like. I think I can't remember what ended up doing one what was like a fungal infection.
Oh, Last of Us is a fungal infection. It's based on the whatever cordyceps or whatever. But that's also weird that it's spread by biting, or is it? I don't know how that zombie mushroom
I'm not
virus is spread.
100% certain. And then like The Walking Dead was like, oh, aliens did it. So but also leaves it very ambiguous. Like I think the Robert Kirkman originally was trying to base it off of aliens, and then because what
The
his thing
reason
was
for
like
that
zombies has been
the reason for that is they weren't gonna just greenlight his zombie thing, so he had to like pretend aliens were also involved because that would make it sell better somehow. Yeah, that was so like he was basically just like, okay, these it's zombie aliens doing it, but I'm just never going to introduce the aliens.
which I mean I guess worked out for him considering like
Oh yeah,
well fairly decently famous off of like The Walking Dead at this point, and I mean they're milking it for what it's worth apparently. Um,
yeah. I mean, they're not making a Battle Pope movie anytime
so
soon. Yeah.
maybe
Anyway,
passion projects are a thing.
I think that's actually
And
like a pre Walking Dead thing. But
I was also gonna say, like, my biggest issue with this shot was the fact that this lady can't seem to figure out how windows work
yeah, that's it's not the biggest like
until it's like
oopsie daisies in this entire franchise, God knows, but yeah, I don't know. It's weird that
it's
granted,
like
it's a
she's trying to open it and she doesn't like hit the locking mechanism at all. Like she just tries to open it from like a standstill, and then like when it's more like convenient for like director stuff, like where they're like, we're gonna make it a life or death situation. She's gonna be like, oh, now I have to actually open a window properly. So that just
it's
really
like the
bugs me
seatbelt
because
thing. It's like how like seatbelts never work in movies, and I've never seen that happen in real
mhm.
life. Like, have you ever seen someone have the experience of like not being able to unbuckle their seatbelt?
Unbuckle, no, buckle like a lot.
Yeah, buckling is one thing, but like unbuckling, I think is like a big myth. Like my mom, years ago, my mom bought me like a thing that like if I ever needed to, I could cut through my seatbelt. I'm like, I've just undo my seatbelt. That's not a real thing. That just happens in movies. Like if someone could like someone's feel free to be like explain to me how seatbelts would get stuck, or if like 70s seatbelts were just way more shit or something, which is possible. God knows the people from the 70s like to bitch about their seatbelts. But yeah, anyway. So yeah, she gets out of her house, goes out to her car. She notices her neighbor waving around a gun, and she's just like, "Neighbor, what's going on?" And he's just like, "Get back, get away, get away, get back." He doesn't want to like talk to anybody, and she's just like, "Oh no, I don't. I'm sorry, help! I don't know what's going on." And eventually, he's just like walking toward her with the gun, and then gets promptly run over by an ambulance in a very silly scene. No
Also,
one in this movie can fucking drive. That is also a fact.
I was gonna talk about this a little bit earlier, but like I feel as if like the main character's like inability to like turn on a news station or like because like earlier on she gets into her car, she's like listening to the news and like there's one station that is showing that like, hey, get your shit together because there's a zombie apocalypse going on. And instead of listening to that, she switches it to a music station. So like no like set of an emergency powers at this point in time is being executed.
Yeah, that's yeah. I mean, although in the States, I don't know they have as like thorough like I don't even think back in the day they had as thorough a thing of like the Amber Alarm warning or whatever, the dangerous weather alert alarm thing working. I don't know if that's as thorough a thing in the States as it is up here.
I guess it's
I know there was actually
2004.
yeah, also, yeah. But I just don't know if it's as thorough a thing down there. It could also be state by state, which is a lot of things in the United States, which could be a problem. Which is why you should set more horror movies in Canada. Wait, don't set more horror movies in Canada. What am I talking about? We don't want everyone to die here. Just keep your American horror story down south. Thank you. It's like
I think I think there's something to be said about Canadian zombie films because it'd be very different than American zombie films when like oh we're held up in a mall in -50 compared to like with like an imminent threat of like zombie apocalypse like would be like a very big, at least in my opinion, like nobody's gonna survive that because if the zombies don't get you then they're like okay.
in the zombie survival guide, did you just bring up that like yeah, once it gets to like -45, these things like these things will probably like freeze to shit when because they're not smart enough to seek shelter, and like you can just like kill them in the middle of the winter or like shit they might like unfreeze and like just melt.
Or like yeah, I think that's like one of the bigger tropes within the zombie universe is that like oh we should go to Alaska because like there's no like it's too cold for the zombies to like exist in Alaska or something, and so like the fact that everybody's like well let's go to Alaska, like let's go to Canada or let's go to Mexico, like I don't know why they would go like out of those two options why you would choose the frozen tundra wasteland, but like apparently if it slows down zombie virus it would be fairly decent. So
Yeah. Although then again, I think 30 Days of Night is also like an Alaskan thing. So
yeah, but that's not zombies, those are vampires.
so are the things from the last the I Am Legend technically.
Don't know if that's actually true canonically,
It
maybe
is.
it
It's
like
explicitly the book it's based off of uh the Last Man on Earth or
yeah
whatever
but
it
that's
is, or no, it's called I Am Legend the book. They are a form of vampires because that book was written before zombies as like flesh-eating monsters became really popular.
that's really dumb to me, at least because
Well,
like the movie didn't lean into that too heavily, and I feel like it should have if that was actually the case because like those were very very smart zombies.
Okay, so here's the here's what you're missing though. Pre Night of the Living Dead, zombies weren't really flesh eaters as much. Like before that, there's a lot of zombie movies are more like voodoo slaves essentially. So they're
Yes,
the flesh eating thing hasn't been codified yet.
which is like really weird because I can't remember, is a demon like being or monster humanoid? What is a ghoul? Because like
Um
before, ghouls used to be like this catch-all term, and like they come up in every once in a while, like harping back to some of this like early Scooby Doo's.
in okay, so in the original Night of the Living Dead, the zombies are referred to as ghouls. So that's also a thing. I think
Like
like
apparently, according
yeah.
to Wikipedia, used in a derogatory sense to refer to a person who delights in the macabre, whose occupation directly involves death. So
I think ghouls are generally more associated with necromancy.
okay, so the concept associated with graveyards and the consumption of human fleshes. So arguably, there's like we could definitely call them ghouls at that point in time, but like,
You can call most modern zombies ghouls just fine too. Like I think that's a normal
mhm,
thing. It's just like the zombie is like because early zombies are like they're known for like just like walking around in a daze, and that's why we called them zombies. It's because of the slow walking. It's not because of the flesh eating.
mhm.
Yeah, but yeah, that's anyway how that works. So she has to. So she starts driving off after that, and she's driving through around some areas. We noticed that like a fucking cargo truck runs into another car and then flips over into a fucking gas station, which just explodes in a massive fireball, just randomly out of nowhere. No one in this movie could drive. Most zombie movies, they're worried about the gridlock. In this one, it's because everyone's fucking insane. Like it's just like the streets aren't actually that clogged, except in some spots. But like it's from car accidents. Like people are just driving straight into each other with reckless abandon. And yeah, just a whole gas station explodes. And then she slows down next to like this mailman guy who tries getting into her car. She starts to drive. She hits the gas to get away from him because she's scared, and ends up going off the side of the road and slams her car into a tree. And at that point, we get the opening credits. It's a bunch of teaser stuff about the society falling and whatnot. It's done over the Johnny Cash song "When the Man Comes Around." So yeah, that's kind of neat. It's nice. This movie has decent songs in it for the most part. But anyway, they go through that a bunch of stuff about society collapsing. The government just shoots some people in it, showing that governments become totalitarian or whatever. Although the government just dies in these movies promptly afterwards. But yeah, so we cut back to the movie, which I assume that opening credits was going to give us like a 5 days later or something, but nope, we just cut back to immediately afterwards, which is really weird. So Anna crawls out of her car, and this cop points a shotgun at her head, and is just like, "Say something." As she does, she just says, "Please," because she's scared and doesn't want to get shot. And he's just like, "All right, come along." They go they go together for a little bit. She's still covered in blood from trying to help out her husband. She's barefoot and everything. They go through an underpass and meet three other people. I don't know how they're related, but there's Andre, Michael, and Luna. Luna, I think, right? Luda. Andre fires a gun at them because he's like spooked, but Michael gets him to stop because Andre, stop! They're cops. It's not clear how these three know each other. Andre and Luda are a couple. They're actually a pretty cute couple. I like them. They're kind of cute together. He's kind of like an African American guy, and she's like a Russian lady, and they're just. I thought they were pretty adorable for the scenes they're in. It ends badly because it's a zombie movie, but yeah, I like that. They're genuinely the best couple in the movie. which is sad.
There was other couples in this movie?
Yeah, I guess Michael and Anna hook up toward the end of it. Also, the
Okay.
nice security guard and Frank's daughter are a thing.
I guess like Anna's character, like husband, right off the bat, just kind of really dies, and that's where I was basing my line on couples.
I think Steve has his girlfriend with him. Also, the Anna Michael thing, I'll talk about it later, but it just comes out of nowhere. Like, I think there's maybe like a scene where, like, in like a montage where they have a thing, but yeah, it is just random. It's just the script just decides they love each other for the last like 10th of the movie or whatever. But yeah, so they meet up and they stop shooting. The cop, what's his name? Kenneth, played by Ving Rhames. He joins into he starts going in a direction, but Michael suggests that he shouldn't go in that direction because it's really bad and zombies there. They decide to go in a different direction and they go to the mall, which is randomly abandoned, which I don't know how that works. I guess maybe it was closed when the zombie apocalypse started, although it doesn't make as much sense in this movie. The mall in the original was like way outside of town, so it had like it was kind of on its own, whereas this one's in like sort of the middle of town. But yeah, so they go to this mall which is inexplicitly abandoned. They manage to make their way in because one door's unlocked, I guess. Andre and Michael sweep the area and go through the whole thing, and Michael ends up getting attacked by a zombie who he managed to dispatch with like a broken croquet mallet after a while. Carlos stayed behind with his gun, not Carlos. Kenneth stayed. I don't know why I thought he was Carlos. I have no idea. I had this confusion this whole movie. I don't know why I thought his name was Carlos. He stands aside, so he stayed aside, and while Andre was, he saw a zombie jump up against a glass door, but his side of the mall was okay. Michael kills the zombie, but in the meantime, another zombie has snuck up on the main group, the Kenneth and the two ladies. It attacks Luda, who is a pregnant woman, pregnant with Andre's child, presumably. And there's a bit of a struggle. Kenneth gets the zombie offer, but is not able to like dispatch it easily enough. But eventually, they manage to wound the zombie, so it's just kind of twitching and can't really move. Which is, I guess, the thing that can happen to zombies in this movie. Sometimes they just don't get killed all the way and just end up twitching and just don't, but can't, are otherwise harmless. It's weird. I don't know the full explanation for that. They call them twitchers. So it's a phenomena, but it doesn't mean much. They managed to head to the second floor through an elevator for whatever reason. You think you'd want to like walk in the situation, but they get out of the elevator and are confronted with mall security. Turns out the three security guards, all of three are armed. I didn't know that mall cops had guns. I suppose some of them do. I don't know. Maybe this is more common in the States. I live in Canada where we don't carry guns everywhere. So they have a whole conversation and they're like, hey, you get out of here. And they're like, no, come on, we have nowhere to go. And they're just like, yeah, whatever. They point out that Kenneth is a cop, so that's a thing. They end up having the discussion and come to the conclusion that they can sort of stay for a little bit, but they're locked in like their own little corner. The main security guard, CJ, is a big asshole who's like trying to control this place. He doesn't really want to let people in because he doesn't want to let sick people in, and is only like tolerating them because regular, and they have to give. They haven't been sick so far. They also have to give up their guns in order to arrange this arrangement, and they're just not allowed to be unsupervised, so that they don't seize power or whatever. So yeah, that's a whole thing. Anna goes off to get some medical supplies, so she can treat some wounds. None of it too serious. just minor cuts. But CJ eventually just starts putting them on like work details, supervised by the armed security guards, which is, yeah, that's interesting. CJ at first seems confident that the government's going to come get them, but despite this, he still like puts himself on the bad end of a cop. Like, yeah, like I'm sure the government's going to come rescue you, and like, hey, and then the cop's just going to say, hey, these guys had me imprisoned like an animal, so like, yeah, beat him up. So yeah, I don't. That's probably a bad thing they did. It doesn't make much sense. But anyway, so they go to make an SOS on the roof to like call for help from helicopters. They also see their practice for getting rid of the bodies. They toss them over the side. We also see that there's a guy trapped on the roof of a gun store across the road. It's actually kind of weird in this movie. The zombies aren't really good at breaking through doors, except for that one door at the beginning, which just got annihilated. But other than that, no zombie can get through any door.
You'd also
Like,
think, like,
yeah, go ahead.
This guy's trapped in a gun store. Wouldn't that be super easy to escape from? Like, maybe I'm just like,
maybe
generally,
I think he's just staying somewhere safe because they at first figure they're going to get safe, and I think throughout the movie, more and more zombies start going throughout this area, so it becomes less and less likely that you're going to be able to get out of here. But yeah, this guy's named Sandy.
Okay, let's just step back here for a second. Like,
Okay,
you're stuck in a zombie apocalypse. The first thing you do, this guy's whole thing was like zombie apocalypse. Let's go to a gun store, get guns. Is that your main concern?
I think might he have owned the gun store though?
Yeah, but you'd think that you'd be like more concerned about
Yeah, but I think maybe he owned that
prior
gun
to
store.
guns.
I think that was where he was when this happened.
But even at that, like theoretically, you start seeing the world go to shit. Like my first thought process isn't like let's stay here. Maybe like if I had like supplies worth, how much supplies would do you think you would need to be able to like I don't know, at least stay a course where you are. Like I'd be like, okay, world's ending. Let's go raid
Well, if his
Walmart
apartment's
or
there,
something. I wouldn't be like
like if
yeah, I
that's a
guess,
two-story
but like
building, he might have an apartment above it. Then they might just have his food.
it's not enough for me. At least like I'd be like out of there.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. I mean, it's like he decided differently, but I think that's perfectly. Like I think you could go either way with it,
Yeah,
depending on who you are.
like a lot of people also like I'm assuming are having a lot of the same thought process because these guys went to a mall.
Yeah.
That might have like been a valid option back in like 2004, but I think malls are slowly running out of practice. Maybe I'm just speaking on it from my own personal experience because like SFM mall kind of suck shit.
No, you're
So
right. They are kind of going out of business.
like I guess some places would probably have like a food court or something a little bit bigger, like better for pickings, but like this movie was supposed to be based around some form of like consumerism is bad like mentality, and then they all run to a mall. So
I think that was more the first one, but I don't know.
I don't know when the first one came out, but like I still feel like that's kind of a valid
I can find
comparison.
this out for you. 78 is the first one.
Yeah, malls would have been probably a lot bigger back then.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
Definitely like the bigger hallmark. Like I don't think I never go to the mall unless I like need to go to like the source or something because like that's all that I really need in our mall. I guess our mall technically has this Sobeys connected to it though. So I mean theoretically.
There's no door into the rest of the mall though. There used to be a Walmart attached to that back in the day, which is how that made its money. They used to be where the Walmart was. But anyway,
Okay, so
did you
yeah.
have something?
Okay. I was gonna say it just I was just gonna say that like they just traded off like a malls for Sobeys in the Estevan
Okay,
Mall.
no,
But
the
yeah,
Walmart was like the combined area of PV Mart, Dollarama, and the Brick. That's where the Walmart was.
that's a very small Walmart.
Yeah, it was. It was a small Walmart. Yeah,
Okay.
but they had a McDonald's in there, and yeah. But then Walmart wanted its own building, so they're doing the bit of that, and they see a military helicopter fly by. And this military helicopter, I think it's from some bad stock footage. Like it seemed really grainy for whatever reason. Did you notice that?
I was going to bring this up later. Like, I saw that there was some really grainy footage. I don't know if this was like just specifically an issue back in 2004, and I never like really caught on to, but like, or if this was like personal director like choice by Snyder that
Yeah.
he made this a little bit grainier or whatnot, but I didn't really notice like a specific scenario where I'm like, hey, this is like super grainy. I'm just like, hey, this is
Yeah.
grainier than it probably should have been. So,
But anyway, this military helicopter just flies by, which it's not the worst thing in the world. It doesn't come get them, but it could just be doing scouting. Like for all they know, there's like a second helicopter following it behind it by like 10 hours or whatever. I don't know. But anyway, so they we cut off into the next morning where the power just comes on automatically at 8 a.m. because this is the mall and it's set up to do that. But they decide, okay, if we're going to be doing this forever, we need to like readjust this so it doesn't do that. So they go to one of the guys goes to readjust that and takes the other five. One of the security guards goes to do that and goes to take the other five to go to a bathroom during the process. And in the meantime, they a big cargo truck ends up driving through the parking lot, plowing into zombies, presumably looking for somewhere safe. The security guards, CJ, the leader of the security guards, is under the impression that he's going to like not let them in. And he's just like, yeah, what are you gonna do? Turn them away? And he's like, yeah, if I have to. But the third security guard, who's a bit of a nicer guy, he ends up turning on him. He's just like, yeah, I'm not killing anyone. Fuck that. So they end up in this moment, now that the other five just happen to be loose, Michael and Kenneth end up taking the guns from CJ and his goon and seize control of them all, just like that. So they throw them into a cell and let the go to let the guys in the cargo truck into the mall. It's revealed that the guys in the cargo truck are an elderly couple, an old lady who is very sick in like a wheelbarrow because she can't freaking walk, and then a guy who's been bitten on his hand, a guy who sprained his ankle, and a couple other women. Also, Steve. Yay, he's in the movie, making the movie significantly worse for the next hour of the movie. So, yeah, Steve is the worst character. So they load up all these guys, and this is where we get our scene where like we get to nail out where the how the virus works. The elderly woman in the wheelbarrow ends up passing away and immediately becomes a zombie, and who is ends up getting killed. And then the main five people, the previous five people, plus the good security guard, ends up having a discussion about this, and they're like, "Yeah, so the bites end up turning people. So that one guy who's been bitten, Frank, he's going to die. He's going to become a zombie. So we need to do something about him." They go to him and are like going to go. Michael and Kenneth are going to go kill him, but they end up getting talked down because the guy Frank is just kind of like really understanding about that. He's like, "Oh God, okay," and they end up doing like a bit of a sort of recreation of the scene from the original where a guy gets bit and turns into a zombie. It's very reminiscent of that, but it's not really the same at all. So Frank, they take Frank into a secluded location. He spends a little bit more time with his daughter Nicole, and we slowly see as the scene goes on, like Frank just gets way worse looking, like steadily just becomes way worse looking as the virus takes hold, and once he starts coming back as a zombie, Kenneth puts him down, which is really sad. We're also we also get a scene a little bit before that where Steve tells Kenneth that the fort he was going to go to, which was like a designated survival area, has been overrun by zombies, and that's where Kenneth's brother was, as he had mentioned earlier. So yeah, they end up trying to do that, and he ends up getting talked down from doing that, and ends up staying there despite like initially storming off. Andre and Luda have a bit of a conversation about like not having the baby here, but Andre is just like, dude, I mean, look, people have had babies long before hospitals. It's gonna be fine, and also like affirming that scratch from earlier, which is they say it's getting better, which we don't really see to confirm that, but we know from later that it's getting worse. And after the scene where they put down Frank, we get a montage of a which is covered by a jazzy version of "Down with the Sickness," which god damn it, that is just the silliest thing. It's so silly.
It's done by somebody named Richard.
Yeah, cover by Richard Cheese. So strange. But yeah, no, it's just the weirdest freaking cover I saw. I wasn't expecting it.
He's also he's been known to do a lot of jazz covers of like popular songs. So
Yeah.
if you want, go look him up. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, go look up Richard
Which
Cheese.
really made me wonder at this point in time, as like how long ago did Down with the Sickness come out by Disturbed? Because it was like this was done up in 2004, and apparently it was made 4 years before that, which makes me think, fuck, I am so old.
Oh yeah, just fuck that, right? It's 2002. Wait, or it's no wait, no, it's no, not the Richard
2000.
Cheese version. Okay, yeah, the Richard Cheese version is 2 years later. But yeah, fuck. The regular song comes on during the ending credits. But yeah, just fuck
Which is good.
everything that reminds us we're old. So yeah, so that's a thing. Kenneth and Andy have started playing chess with each other. We notice that the zombie horde around the mall has just gotten like absurdly huge, and he's become sort of a member of the community. It's kind of nice how they're kind of like chilling, like chatting with this guy over like whiteboards about like, yeah, no, he's kind of like become this weird little member of the community. It's weird. Secondary member of the cast. Anna a little later offers to go check on Luda. Andre's super defensive about her seeing Luda, which it's revealed a little bit later that she started getting sick, and that she's now strapped to a bed while they're trying to see if she'll give birth. Yeah, no, I really wish zombie fetus was less of a well trodden ground. I really wish that was a thing that wasn't as many movies as this. I've seen it 3 times now.
So there was this one. There was Blood Quantum,
Yeah, and I
and
saw
I
one.
don't know the
Yeah.
third one that we.
Oh, you haven't seen it, I don't think. It was one of the ones I watched. I think it's in it's either in Zombie 3 or Land of the Dead. I can't remember. I saw it recently though. I just can't remember what movie it was in. But I just saw like a third one or a second one the other night. Yeah. Which it's valid body horror. Yeah.
And entirely fair, but like it's really
Go ahead.
like what came first, the chicken or the egg? Like, did Zack Snyder do it, and then all of a sudden everybody is like, yeah, zombie fetuses need to be more of a thing in.
I don't think it's not super common, but it's like it's happened at least 3 times. Although I think zombie if it was Zombie 3, that one came out first.
Okay.
Yeah. I just can't remember where the other one was because I don't try to think about those too long after this. But I mean, yeah, it's valid body horror. I just don't. It's always just too much for me. I don't like it. It's not as bad as it is in Blood Quantum though. Like that was really disturbed. This is too, but it's not quite as bad as it was in that movie.
I mean, like, I can definitely see where they were coming from in the first place. A lot of like alien
Yeah.
chest
Oh yeah.
bursters. There was another one that I can't really think of where they're doing surgery on a guy, and then all of a sudden the thing popped out or whatever it was popped out.
It was The Thing.
So
I
I
think you're
mean, it's
thinking The Thing.
yep. I think that is
John Carpenter's The
absolutely
Thing.
100%
Yeah.
correct. I am definitely thinking that.
No, like it's valid body horror. I don't like it. Like just as viscerally. Like it's not a feature I want in my films. Not because it's bad, but because I don't like watching it. It's like my thing with eye gouging. Like I also don't like that. I don't like any movie where I have to see an eye gouged out. Anyway, so yeah, that this scene goes poorly and Luda becomes a zombie and eventually the baby gives birth and that's a whole thing. This scene happens during another thing that's happening where the power is all going out through the building, so they have to go down to the basement to see if they can restart the backup generator. Although it might have just run out of fuel, who knows? I think those things are probably diesel powered or whatever. But they go down to check on it, and they get CJ to go help them. CJ and his goon. The goon ends up getting killed by like a random zombie that falls from the ceiling, and they only barely manage to get out of there alive. Like the team of Kenneth, CJ, Michael, and the other guy who his name I didn't learn. But yeah, this is coincided with the scene where Luda is giving birth. Norma goes to go check on Norma, the one of the other elderly farmer lady who had come in on the truck. Goes to check on Luda because they haven't heard from her and the power's out, so it's probably a thing they should do. So they go to check on her. Norma sees that Luda has turned into a zombie. Andre is just holding a baby in a swaddling cloth, and has clearly gone a little nuts. He had a whole scene earlier with Kenneth where he was just like, "Man, I've done some bad things, but I'm gonna stay on this earth so I can make sure this baby comes through." And it's actually a really well done arc, I think. Like it's actually genuinely sad this turn of events with Andre and Luda. I think it's actually one of the better parts of the movie how this turns out. So this ends up with Luda seeing Norma seeing Luda turned into a zombie, and so she pulls a gun, shoots Luda, which causes Andre, because he's lost his mind and is really sad with grief right now, to draw his gun and shoot Norma. They end up getting into a gunfight, and everyone goes to check on them, and they find that Norma and Andre have shot each other to death, and that the baby that Luda had given birth to is a zombie. So yeah, that's depressing. And then we just hear a big boom gunshot. Yeah, and this is where I'll also find out that the regular dead people don't get up. Like if they get shot, they don't come up. So that's good to know, I suppose. Kenneth, after this, they do a funeral, and he talks about like, I've had to go to a lot of funerals, and I've always given my condolences, but deep down I was always thinking better them than me. But this time I think that's bullshit. So we're gonna go do something else. Which, yeah, what the fuck with that speech? Like better them than me? Jeez, that's a hell of a thing to think at someone's funeral. So after during this, they get a whole plan of where Steve sarcastically says like, "Yeah, no, we'll go to the marina, grab my boat, and go find an island." And they're just like, "Yeah, that's not a bad idea." And he's just like, "I was sarcastic," but they end up going with it anyway. And even CJ is just like, "That's a dumb plan, but I'm in," for some reason.
I don't know why people didn't bring this up earlier. If you're in a zombie apocalypse and you
I mean, because the mall was running. I think, yeah.
even at that, Like, if you're withholding the fact that you own a boat or plane or tank in a zombie apocalypse, you are a dickhead. Plain and simple.
Yeah, this is a weird thing. Like, I mean, granted, the boat's on the other side of the city. It's not the easiest thing to get to. Like they're planning to get to
That's even
the
worse.
boat. Yeah, I mean, it's also not your first thought. Yeah,
It's not even like they have to travel out of like state to get to the marina. It's on the other side of a city. I don't know how big Milwaukee is, but I'm assuming it can't be that big.
Milwaukee's like huge. Milwaukee's like the brewery city. I'll look it up. Milwaukee. Load, you motherfucker. Yeah, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, population of 577 and 222,000. 577,000. It's the 31st most populous city of the United States. Yeah, so it's a pretty big town.
Yeah, but like give or take 6 hours, maybe at most, to travel from like one side of Milwaukee to another. Like that's not. And I'm
And
being
with no
very like
traffic,
abstract about it. Yeah, about the time here.
could be half an hour, maybe even, or an hour, maybe. Usually, in big American cities, it's usually the traffic that gets you, not so much the distance.
That's
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah, so it's yeah. Granted, like I mean, they thought they were maybe getting rescued at the beginning, and the mall did seem safe for a long time. They've also found a dog in the basement, who they named Chips. So they go to set up this. They go to modify these two little buses that are in the basement to go like armor them up and go across town to get to this guy's boat and go to an island. But Andy points out that he's running out of food, so they decide that hey, what if the dog just takes food over to him and they'll just load him up with like dog bags, like saddlebags essentially. Because the dogs were ignoring him in the base. The dogs was being ignored by the zombies in the basement, so it would add up that the zombies wouldn't ignore the dog there. Nicole is the Frank star. Nicole is very much against this plan. Is like really, really, really attached to the dog and doesn't want them to do it. But I mean, yeah, they're willing to make the sacrifice to go save on Andy. Sorry, Andy. Andre can't be saved. But yeah, so they load up the dog's saddlebags with food and send them over to Andy, which for the most part works. The dog gets to the other side. They use like dog whistles to attract the dog over there. They've even set up a doggy door so the dog can just get in. But thankfully, but unfortunately, the zombies managed to sneak in past the dog, and the zombies flood the place, and the zombies get Andy, and he gets bitten, but he does kill the zombies initially. Nicole ends up risking her life to go get that cargo van from earlier and goes to go rescue Chips. Which sounds dumb, but it does turn out okay, actually. Like, it doesn't actually turn out nearly as bad as you think it was from that description. Because here's the thing, they need to go to that gun store anyway because they're running out of bullets. Because they only have like barely double digits of bullets left. I think they only have like 6 shells left too. So they need to go over there anyway. Nicole has managed to barge herself into a closet to hide from Andy, who is finally turned. They have a sweet moment where Andy retrieves a walkie-talkie that they got from there, and it's just like, "Yeah, man, it's good to finally hear your voice." Oh, dude, and then they just know that like, yeah, he's been bitten, he's gonna turn. It's really actually pretty sad. There are a couple. This movie does have its gems. That's why I haven't totally written it off as a bad movie. It does have like a few good character moments. Like some say the characters are weak, but there's a few good moments. I think that's passable, honestly. So yeah, they go get this plot going. They sneak through the sewers and go up through the manhole to go get to the gun store. They leave Steve and one of the other guys from the cargo van, Tucker, to go guard the door. which yeah, that's a thing. And Kenneth, Michael, CJ, and the other security guard. I'm forgetting his name. I think I actually know this guy, this actor. I'm just gonna look this up real quick. I think it's maybe Kevin Zegger's character Terry. I think Terry's maybe the character. Either way, those four go and they actually do manage to rescue Nicole and the dog, and they have to put down Andy sadly. They raid the store for a bunch of guns, so they get all the bullets they could ever need. They manage to sneak their way back to the sewer. Fucking Tucker is gone after them and went to load up the close the sewer grate. He doesn't manage to close the sewer grate behind him and ends up getting bitten because he falls down, breaks his ankle or sprains his ankle really badly. CJ actually does a pretty heroic moment where he drags Tucker along for a while, but can't end up saving him. But it's actually a pretty heroic moment for a little bit. CJ was a dick earlier, but he seems to have weirdly redeemed himself, which is strange. Yeah, it doesn't feel terribly earned. It's a weird character moment. So yeah, they lose Tucker, and they go to the door where they came in to find that Steve has abandoned the area. Fucker that he is. And this is why everyone hates Steve, is because he just like randomly screws people over for no reason. Like it was absolutely not staying by that door. Thankfully, Anna manages to run by it and opens the door for them to let them in. But unfortunately, this results in them having to flee the area quickly, and not Steve doesn't end up getting his comeuppance immediately because they have to flee the area so quickly. You know what? It's weird. Anna's like the main character, but she doesn't do anything throughout the movie. Like I think she gets top
No, not
billing, but she
really.
doesn't. No, because like a lot of this is her point of view, but I mean Kenneth does become like the main character after a while, but like this is a movie where the men do everything, sadly, which is not the best. It doesn't really fall into the Romero like tradition, but it's not as bad as a lot of movies. Like it's not as bad as some movies are though. They still participate, and Norma gets a good couple shots off through the movie, so it's not too. I'm not. It's not as bad as all I'm saying. It more feels like the women aren't doing as much. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's actually probably fine. It's just like not holding up to. Romero's really good with that, whereas I don't think this is more like average with that sort of thing. Yeah, they go to the buses. They start driving off. They end up getting caught in the horde for a little bit, but CJ throws out a big propane tank and they shoot that, causing a big explosion, like a ludicrously big explosion. Which, yeah, I don't know what a propane explosion looks like, but yeah, um, and
It's
that
definitely
kills
not
like
this.
literally all the zombies around and saves them.
Which is super dumb because like actually like we have a very good um talking point for like explosions in this movie because like in the first couple of scenes like they set off like an actual like gas explosion,
Oh
and
yeah,
this is just
this
like
is like a
one
third of the
like
size of that.
barbecue propane tank. Like I don't know why it was so big from one propane tank, but like I've never actually shot a propane tank, so because I'm a smart, decent human being.
Granted, it's maybe double the size of like a regular propane tank. It's sort of bigger, but still, it's a ludicrously big fireball. But very effective though, so our
Yeah,
heroes are able to keep going. A zombie gets caught onto the back of the rear bus. There's two of them. Zombie gets caught on the side of the rear bus. So one of the characters, who I forget his name, but he had like the high heel bit from earlier. He's the character from the extended cuts that is sharing his feelings, and like I think like they wisely cut that from this version of the movie. I recommend just like if you're watching this, watch whatever versions on like YouTube or whatever. Like, just don't. I wouldn't look into the extended cut wherever that is, or director's cut, whatever it's called, because that could only possibly make the movie worse. And yeah, it's probably not worth it. So I just watch this one and be better for it. So yeah, they managed to keep going. The zombie gets caught onto the rear bus. Yeah, the guy, I figured out where I was going again. The guy takes the chainsaw, but unfortunately, at this time, at the exact time he starts the chainsaw, before he's managed to like slid into the slot to because they have like a thing where there's like slots along the side of the bus where they can like put the chainsaw blade in and like chop through the zombies that are messing up the place, like grabbing onto the side of the bus so they don't get drugged down or whatever, which is a neat little design choice. Unfortunately, they make a hard right before the guy can slot the chainsaw into the thing, and yeah, the guy ends up cutting one of the final lady. I can't remember her name. Ends up chopping her in half. Doesn't take his hand off the fucking chainsaw like a sensible person would. Because yeah, those things tend to stop when you take your hand off the trigger. But yeah, he ends up chopping her in half basically. And the entire van, the rear van, driven by Kenneth and Steve, ends up like turning on its side and falling over because no one in this movie can drive. Like, it is just the fact of this matter. No good scene involves cars in this.
One of my biggest quips about this, earlier on, they went out of their way to show people, like spray painting like the vehicles that they're driving. If you're in a zombie apocalypse and you're trying to like do a montage, please never spray paint. It's just a giant waste of time when you can be like pimping out pimping out the doomsday vehicles. That's like actually
The movie I just watched, Land of the Dead, has a similar thing where they have like a super bus that like can that fights off zombies, and they don't spray paint it at all. But yeah, it doesn't make much sense.
yeah, exactly. Like it's just a giant
Yeah,
waste of time and like resources. You could have used that spray paint can and I don't know, blew up 30 blocks worth of zombies with it in this uh, universe logic.
but I mean George Romero directed that movie, so yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that George A. Romero is a better director than Zack Snyder, but yeah, probably George A. Romero is a better director than Zack Snyder, most likely. But yeah, so the front bus actually manages has to go get them. It's actually not too big a deal, except that Kenneth and Steve, who survived the crash, Steve starts getting up. Kenneth's just like, "Hey, buddy, help me up," and Steve just wanders off. Like, come on, Steve, just help the guy up, please. Of course, as soon as Steve walks out of this bus, he gets exactly what he deserves. He gets turned into a zombie immediately.
None of these, yeah, like CJ and like Steve, in my opinion, didn't really get decent enough. Well, Steve didn't get a redemption arc at all, and like CJ is still just was just so much of an asshole that by the end of it, I didn't really care for him. So I mean,
Yeah,
they both could have died, but then they're like trying to give this redemption arc over to CJ, and it never really felt like it got there for me. So like,
it felt so unearned. Yeah.
mhm. Like both of these characters could have died in this scene, and I probably wouldn't really feel bad about it at all because I mean they weren't very decent characters. So
Yeah, this movie has a few good character moments, but they're a little in between. But I mean, it's better than like an average movie. But yeah, anyway. Yeah, Steve gets out. Kenneth manages to get his way out of the vehicle on its own eventually, just to meet Anna. But they have to go chase down Steve because he has the keys to the boat. Or Anna chases down Steve because he has the keys to the boat. She manages to shoot Steve in the head, and it's the best part of the movie. Just like shooting Steve in the head is good, and she gets the keys and manages to just barely make her way back to the van. But in this moment, like we can see Michael get bit, and it's revealed a little later that he got bit. So yeah, they make their way to the arena, and they just wreck shit through there. I don't know why they don't just park the van. It's weird. I mean, the zombies are all right behind them, like ludicrously right behind them. It's weird. I mean, they are fast zombies, but yeah, it's just I wish they were a little slower. I don't know. They're also driving, so it feels like they should be going way faster than the zombies can run. but they're all just following them like a bunch of bulls at the bull running event. CJ manages to hold off a bunch of the zombies for a bit. Explodes another propane tank, and kills a bunch of zombies, giving them a brief moment, the last moment they need to get onto the boat. Michael admits that he's been bit. He has like a really lovey-dovey moment with Anna, even though basically their entire romance was like mitigated to like a montage, if that. Like it just happened out of nowhere. They're apparently having a thing, which it just came out of nowhere. It was super weird. I don't even think this movie takes place over too long a time. Like maybe a couple weeks tops.
Yeah, I have no clue. When we actually think about it, because like
they say it takes them like 5
the
days
only
to fix
real
up
like
the vans. But yeah, that's about it.
okay, yeah.
We see that, and we see that
So probably a week's probably your best estimate.
Yeah, we see like a firm 3 days at the beginning of the movie, and like we know it took them. It says in universe it took them like 5-6 days to fix the van, so we know that much. But yeah, we don't have like a firm grasp on the time. I'm assuming a couple weeks, but I don't know that for sure. So Michael stays behind on the dock, and a gunshot causes the credits to roll, implying that Michael shot himself or something. I don't know. It's really sad.
Yeah.
Michael's not like the emotional core of this movie. So it's, yeah, I don't know.
In my opinion,
I
like
think,
Andy's death was so much sadder because
oh yeah,
hearing the optimism in the character's voice where he's like, "Man, guys, I did it. I like fended off all those zombies," and then everybody's like, "Well, do we tell him?" And they're like, "No, just
yeah.
let him figure it out." And then like they just drive off without him. That's so much sadder than like just like
This movie has its moments, but there's also the bad moments in it. Like they're counteracted. I think it comes out neutrally in the end. But there are some genuinely
yeah,
good
and I
moments
can
with
definitely see.
like Kenneth and Andy and Andre and Luda are like the best subplots in the movie. I like them, but over the
Yeah.
credits, they find Steve's camera. We get like one brief shot of a topless lady for whatever reason. Just because they feel they need to get one in. So yeah, they take a boat. They go out into fucking Lake Michigan or something. I don't know. And they find an island. They get there, and it's ends up being filled with zombies. So all these characters die.
Oh.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I saw
Okay.
that the camera stuff was happening in the credits, so I like stuck around for a little bit, and yeah. So all these characters are dead. It was dumb. I didn't like it. I don't think it's a really good. I think they could have just
That
ended it.
kind of ruins it for me.
Yeah, no, it is bad. Yeah, dumb. Yeah, unless one of these characters comes back in Army of the Dead, which I don't think so, but I'll look through it real quick. Because Army of the Dead is like the sequel, but I think it's just a spiritual sequel.
No,
Uh,
100% is last time I checked on Wikipedia, but it
I'm
could
just
be
yeah.
wrong.
No, I'm not seeing anyone.
Like not even a zombie cameo or
No, not that I'm seeing. Although I didn't like look all the way through the zombie cameos. Although that movie takes place in Las Vegas, which is way far away from all this. But yeah,
fair enough. I just know that like a lot of zombie movies likes to do that where they're like they won't bring a character back from the dead, but they'll show him as a zombie very briefly to try and tie in. I think Walking Dead did it a lot where they tried to tie in some of their other work with the original.
but yeah. What do you give the movie, Cody?
Uh, I think I was probably gonna give it a little bit higher than what I thought initially because you did say that it had some decent moments. I didn't think it had too many decent moments. I would have said probably about like 3 out of 10. And then you told me that they just killed everybody in the end of the movie, and that kind of like I'd like to believe that there was a world where they like they got to their island and lived happily ever after, and you kind of just ruined that fantasy for me. So I mean,
Yeah. I don't. Yeah, I really didn't like that. That was a sour
it's
taste in
not
my mouth
really
for
the
obvious
ending. That's
reasons.
the fact that definitely didn't really need to happen. And then
I'm at like an even 5. Like I just, yeah, it would have been a 6 if not for that ending.
yeah, I wouldn't even give this above a 5.
Like I'm not saying it has to be a happy ending, but it just felt like a real cheat. It felt like one of those. It felt like an explanation they'd given like the sequel to the movie, where they didn't want to pay for any of the old actors back, so they like killed them all off screen. So I didn't care for that.
Well, considering it like Snyder's directorial debut, maybe that was why he
Yeah,
made that choice.
first
Like,
movie.
well, what would happen if this movie flops? You know, maybe then like I don't have to justify ever trying to like making a sequel to something like this. But I still think it just cheapens what you tried to create in the first place. So
Yeah, I don't know. Snyder's films are always kind of like yeah, but can always kind of be like yeah, but he has potential. I think 300 is probably his best movie, but yeah, I don't know.
well, even at that, like 300 kind of has that same feel to it where like it doesn't really matter what he does during the film because like the film's already set in. Um, it was a historical based film, so I knew what happened by the end of it. So
Yeah, but I feel like the deaths are more earned at the end of that one. Like that's a whole like because that's like a whole like heroic death thing. This one it's just like, oh yeah, the characters escaped, but they end up drifting onto the ocean for a while and just run out of fuel, and it's just like a really hopeless death. Like it just feels like watching humanity die, which isn't as fun. Which like that's always
fair.
hard to do, like the really pessimistic endings. I just think that's a really hard thing to pull off.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see you soon. We're gonna cut off here. We'll see you soon. With either Zombie 3 or Return of the Living Dead, depending on what order I get these out in. Cody will be back when we do the Wolf Man in November here sometime. And yeah, so see you guys later. Goodbye.